Have you ever bought something so cheap it felt like a steal? A t-shirt for the price of a coffee, a new phone charger for a couple of bucks. It feels great, right? Like you've hacked the system. For decades, the world has been addicted to these bargains, many of them labeled Made in China. This phenomenon, often called the China price, has shaped our lives, our homes, and our global economy in ways we barely notice. It's the reason we can afford so much stuff. But what if I told you this addiction to too cheap is becoming a dangerous trap? What if the very thing that made our lives more affordable is now threatening to destabilize the entire global market? Today, we're diving deep into the China price trap, and why what seems like a great deal for you and me might be a massive risk for everyone. It all started decades ago. China opened its doors to the world, offering a seemingly endless supply of low-cost labor and a government eager to build factories. For companies made in China, sticker on their products became the golden ticket to higher profits. They could make things cheaper, sell them cheaper, and still make more money. This flooded the world with affordable goods. Think about it. Everything from your sneakers to the device you re-watching this on has likely been touched by this system. This wasn't just good for companies. It was great for consumers. Suddenly, products that were once luxuries became everyday items. This hyper-efficient manufacturing helped lift hundreds of millions of people in China out of poverty and gave consumers worldwide more purchasing power. It seemed like a perfect win-win, so where's the trap? Well, the trap snaps shut when a system built on cheaper is always better starts to break down. For a long time, the China price was powered by low wages and massive scale. But things are changing. Wages in China have been rising steadily for years. The cost of raw materials is going up. And the Chinese economy itself is facing serious headwinds, like a struggling property market and slowing domestic demand. So, what happens when Chinese factories can't just rely on being the cheapest anymore? They face a tough choice: either raise prices and risk losing business, or find new ways to cut costs. And this is where the danger really starts. Instead of just competing on price, China is now moving a new phase. It's aiming to dominate higher-tech industries: electric vehicles, solar panels, batteries, and advanced electronics. The Chinese government is pouring billions into these sectors, creating massive production capacity. This is often called the New Three Industries. The goal is no longer just to be the world's factory, but to be the world's high-tech innovator and manufacturer. And here is the twist. They're redoing it with the same old playbook: massive scale and state support, leading to prices that other countries simply can't compete with. Let's take electric vehicles, for example. Chinese EV brands are exploding onto the global scene with cars that are stylish, packed with tech, and you guessed it, incredibly cheap. A new EV from a Chinese brand can cost half as much as a comparable model from a European or American automaker. How is this possible? It's a combination of massive government subsidies, intense domestic competition that drives down prices, and control over the entire supply chain, from the mines that extract lithium for batteries to the showrooms that sell the final car. This is great news if you want a cheap EV, right? But for automakers in the US, Europe, Japan, and Korea, it's a nightmare. They're struggling to compete, and they're accusing China of dumping selling products abroad for less than they cost to make, just to grab market share and push competitors out. We've seen this movie before. In the 2000s, a flood of cheap Chinese steel hollowed out steel industries in the US and Europe, leading to factory closures and lost jobs. The same happened with solar panels. China now dominates over 80% of the global solar panel supply chain, not just by being more efficient, but by using state support to undercut competitors until they went out of business. Now, the fear is that the same thing is happening again, but this time in the most critical, high-tech industries of the future. It's not just about losing jobs in old-school manufacturing. It's about losing the race for the next generation of technology. This creates a huge dilemma for the rest of the world. If we let this flood of ultra-cheap, subsidized goods continue, our own industries could be wiped out. This would leave us dangerously dependent on a single country, China, for the essential technologies of the 21st century. Imagine a future where almost all our electric cars, batteries, and green energy tech comes from one place. That's a huge strategic vulnerability. Any disruption, whether it's a political disagreement, a trade war, or a supply chain crisis, could bring our economies to a standstill. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket, and then handing that basket to your biggest economic rival. On the other hand, what's the alternative? blocking these cheap goods with tariffs and trade barriers. This is what the US and the EU are starting to do. The US recently announced massive tariffs on Chinese EVs, batteries, and solar cells. The EU is launching its own investigation. But this approach has its own problems. First, it means consumers like you and me pay more. Those cheap EVs and solar panels? They'll get more expensive. This could slow down our transition to green energy, making it harder to fight climate change. It also risks starting a full-blown trade war. China has already said it will retaliate, and a tit-for-tat cycle of tariffs could hurt everyone, slowing down global growth and making everything more expensive. So we are caught in a trap. On one side, we have the allure of cheap, innovative products that can accelerate our green transition and save consumers money. On the other side, we have the risk of wiping out our own industries, losing our technological edge, and becoming strategically dependent on a single nation. There are no easy answers here. Some argue we need to de-risk, not decouple. This means not cutting off trade with China completely, but diversifying our supply chains. It means investing heavily in our own domestic manufacturing and R&D to compete on innovation, not just price. It's about building resilience so we aren't so vulnerable. This strategy, sometimes called friendshoring, involves building supply chains with allied countries that share similar values and a commitment to fair competition. Companies are already doing this, moving some production to places like Vietnam, Mexico, and India. But this process is slow, expensive, and it means the era of too cheap to be true might be coming to an end. The price of our goods might start to reflect their true cost, including the cost of labor, environmental protection, and a more resilient, diversified global economy. The China price trap is one of the biggest economic and geopolitical challenges of our time. It forces us to ask some really tough questions. What is the true cost of cheap? Is it worth sacrificing our own industries and strategic independence for a bargain? And can we find a way to trade and compete with China that is fair, sustainable, and doesn't lead us down a path of conflict and dependency? The decisions being made in Washington, Brussels, and Beijing right now will shape the answer to these questions and define the global economy for decades to come. As consumers, we're on the front lines of this shift. The next time you see an unbelievably cheap product, it's worth thinking about the hidden costs and the complex global trap that lies behind that tempting price tag. Thanks for watching. What do you think is the right path forward? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. See you in the next one.